Hello and welcome to today's video. In today's video we'll be replacing the front brake pads and rotors on this 2008 Chevy Impala. When doing your front brakes, you'll want to have the car lifted and supported by jack stands, and these are the lifting points that I used. I'm using the car's pinch weld to lift it and supporting it with a jack stand on the subframe. At this point, we're ready to begin taking apart the brakes, starting with the brake caliper, which will need a 13mm socket to do so. Now using a ratchet, we can loosen one bolt at a time. Once you get the first bolt loose, we can loosen the other. Once they're hand tight, we can loosen the rest by hand. With both bolts removed, let's go ahead and slide off the caliper, placing it out of the way for now. I hang it on the strut in the meantime. Let's remove the old brake pads, which look like they barely have any material left. To get these off, just slide out one corner first, and then the remaining edge. Now we'll have to remove the brake caliper bracket, if you're replacing the rotors that is, which is held on by two bolts, which we'll need a 15mm socket for, and I got an adapter on mine for the longer 1/2 ratchet that I'll be using for more leverage. A longer ratchet does make loosening these bolts a lot easier. With that one loose, let's loosen the other. We'll want to keep loosening them till they're on there hand tight. Now that we got them both loose, let's go back and loosen the rotor hold down screw. And for this, we'll need a T30 Torx bit to loosen and remove the screw. Now using the ratchet, we can turn the screw counterclockwise. With that screw off, let's go back and remove the brake caliper bracket completely. Out comes the bracket, followed by the rotor. This is the new rotor and the ceramic brake pads that I'll be using, which also included the brake hardware kit. Before installing the new rotor, you'll want to clean the brake surface of any rust protective coating using brake cleaner spray. Now you'll want to wipe it down with a clean rag or a towel. Flip it over and repeat on the other side. Now with the rotor prepared, let's install it back onto the hub, followed by the retaining screw. This screw doesn't need to be on so tight, you'll just want to snug it up. Now on to preparing the brake caliper bracket, starting with removing the old brake hardware. With the old ones removed, let's install the new ones. Just place them into position and push down, making sure that they fully seat. Followed by the other side. Now just give it a quick glance, just to make sure that they're in all the way. Now to clean and lubricate our brake caliper guide pins. Doing this step will ensure that our brake pads wear evenly. First we can clean off any of the old lubricant on the brake pin. Now we can use our new brake lubricant and lubricate the guide pin. You don't want to put too much, if not it'll be difficult to push back in. You'll want to spread it on evenly, coating the pin all around. Let's go ahead and push it back in, getting the rubber seal on all around. Let's continue on to the other pin. Now that this one's lubricated, let's get it back in. Now let's go ahead and prepare our new brake pads. For this step, I like to use the old brake pads for reference, and you see all those contact points? You want to add brake lubricant to any of those spots, including the brake pad slide points here on the edge. You'll want to avoid getting any of this on the brake pad surface, or the rotor surface. If it does happen, you'll want to clean it off with brake cleaner. Now repeat on the other brake pad, but these contact points will be different, because these contact points are the caliper fingers that squeeze on the brake pad. You'll also want to lubricate the slide points on this one. Let's go ahead and install our caliper bracket, followed by the 2 bolts. You'll want to get these bolts in as much as you can by hand, so you'll avoid damaging the threads. Now we can bring them down using the ratchet. Once you got them both bottomed out, we can torque them to spec using the torque wrench. With the bracket bolts torqued to spec, we can go ahead and install our new brake pads. These brake pads have these little warning tabs, and you may wonder if it matters where you place them. Well, you want them to be supported by the brake pad when the car is driving forward, so when they begin to rub, they don't just break off. Same with the inner brake pad, since these brake pads have warning tabs on all 4. But if you only have 2 brake pads with warning tabs, I prefer to place those on the inside. Now to compress our brake caliper, to accommodate for those new brake pads and rotors. First we'll want to use an old brake pad, then our brake pad spreader. And you will notice that these are 2 piston calipers, and the way you want to do these is you alternate from one to the other so the pistons compress evenly. And whenever compressing brake calipers, you want to keep an eye on the brake fluid reservoir so it does not overflow as the fluid is pushed back into the reservoir. Now that our brake caliper is compressed, let's reinstall it onto the brake caliper bracket with the 2 bolts. And as with any bolts, you want to get them in by hand before using a ratchet or a wrench. Now let's use our ratchet or wrench to tighten them down or torque them to spec. With our brakes done, we want to complete this final step, which is pressing the brake pedal a few times so the brake caliper pistons butt up against the brake pads. Now all that's left is reinstalling the wheel and torquing the lug nuts to spec. Well, I hope you found this video helpful and informative. If so, please click that thumbs up button to support my video and my channel. And please subscribe if you haven't done so.